Okay.
You should presume you're on the air now.
Okay. Want to change my name. Let's see.
This is Jeff Breedlove with the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse. It's a great Monday, May 4th. May the 4th be with you. And I'm with our Executive Director of the Georgia Council on Substance Abuse, Neil Campbell, for today's edition of the Neil Campbell Report. Neil, thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. It's good to see everybody out there.
You know, Neil, as you know, as COVID continues to enter into its long stay with us, details change here and there, but the fact remains that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And the fact remains that there's a phase 2 coming of this pandemic for the secondary medical issues. And at the top of that list are going to be issues associated with mental health, substance use disorder, domestic violence, issues important to our recovery community. Yeah. And the series that we're doing is to bring awareness to that reality that while we flatten the curve a little bit in COVID, that may be good on those front issues, but the back issues, we haven't even seen the worst of those yet. Mm-hmm. And as the state and federal governments and our local governments prepare and make their decisions, most maybe impactfully to us, the state budget, which has to be dealt with in the coming weeks, you know, the concept of programs and money behind programs is going to be discussed, but you have always made a point that I thought our viewers would love to hear more about on the Neil Campbell Report, and that is the importance of the peer voice in recovery. And you truly are an expert on this issue, and so I'd like to turn the floor over for you. We'll just have a conversation about that importance of the peer voice in recovery.
Thanks, Jeff. And I'm lucky enough to live in a state where the peer voice is heard and the peer voice is lifted up in many ways. And I always want to start out any talk about certified peer specialists or peer support with giving kudos to the Georgia Mental Health Consumer Network and the work that the trailblazing work that they've done across the country to spread the word that there should be nothing about us without us. So it's this whole notion that we are people in recovery. We have the lived recovery experience. We believe in self-direction. We believe in autonomy, and we know what's best for us, even given the fact that we have struggled with substance use disorder or continue to struggle with substance use disorder. So as you know, back in 2010, we started thinking about having a certified peer specialist for addiction credential. And it wasn't really popular back then. It was, especially for addiction, for mental health, it'd been around for a long time, but in addiction, not so much. And some of the struggles that we had to go through, the hurdles we had to go through was people telling us, oh, you know, you people, it's all the stigma associated with who we are and what we do. And as a person in long-term recovery, I know that most of those, the things that get said about us either aren't true or they may be true occasionally, but they're not, you know, they don't define who I am. So we just believe in this way that says we are not our diagnosis, that we can get through this, we can get through our substance use disorder, our substance misuse, whatever it may be, and get to the other side of that and become good citizens who care about our neighbors, who care about our families, and just want to do better. So we started doing focus groups all over the state saying, if you had a recovery coach or a peer supporter helping you with your addiction, what are some of the characteristics you'd like those folks to have? How much recovery would you want them to have? What do you see them doing in the workforce? And one thing I just want to make perfectly clear at the start is we are not sponsors. We're not 12-step sponsors. We're not counselors. We're something in between. We're something different. We have our own carved out role, right? So we're not trying to be mini counselors, or I could never do, I love counselors. And if I get into emotional trouble, the first thing I do is run to my therapist, right? But that's not who I am. I am a coach. I am a peer. I am someone who has a lived recovery experience that recognizes, I have just a strong belief that the recovery in me can see the recovery in you.
You know, Neil, I think that's a great point, and that illustration is perfect. You know, when I went to treatment, my counselor I'll say his name, he's very public, Matt Irwin, saved my life. I believe that. And
Yeah.
we need the Matt Irwins of the world out there.
Yes.
The people that validated everything Matt was telling me were my peers, right? So
Yeah.
a counselor can say something to me all day long, but I'm going to gotta go check him out, and I'm going to check him out with other peers. And so the genius of the peer-led movement is having leaders understand that somewhere in between those others, we need to empower the peer voice, because that's what, if you go to treatment for 28 days or 90 days, what happens on day 91 when the counselor isn't there 24 hours a day?
That's right. That's right. And we know that being in recovery is not just not using alcohol or other drugs, right? That's only a part of it. It's healing our families, having something meaningful to do during the day, have a safe and sober place to live, all of those things that we can get from that affiliation with our peers. And I did the same thing. I got better. I did not go to formal treatment like you, Jeff. I went to a 12-step program, and I went to therapy. And I had a therapist named Janice Tice in Tallahassee, Florida, and she's a genius. I was with her a long time through my early recovery. And so I would never want to replace her, could never replace her. She's a PhD licensed psychologist. I could not do that. But I did also have a group of people who surrounded me, who cared about my recovery, who were there to say, hey, on Friday after you get paid, don't go to the bar, come with us. We're going for a walk, or we're going for a bicycle ride, or we're going, we're going to do something else. And so I got to, until I found myself and who I was, I had a community of peers. So what I really want folks to know, and our legislature to know, is that Georgia is really, really lucky. We are so lucky to have this peer workforce that we have. People who, like you, like me, like the 730 something the certified addiction recovery empowerment specialists, the cares that we have in the state. We just want to help, and we want to be part of the solution, and we want at the table. We always say, Jeff, you hear me say this all the time, there is no table where we should not be. We should be at every table. If we believe and we value self-direction, then we need to know whether it's our lawmakers, whether it's our county commissioners, whether it's our neighborhood watches, we should be involved with those decisions at every level.
Well, that's exactly right, Neil. And look, there's no sugarcoating what's going on in the state of Georgia for the month of May. They're going to meet in the General Assembly at some point in June, and they're going to vote on a budget that's going to have real immediate impact on the recovery community and all Georgians from every walk of life. And the ironic thing is, our leaders have invested in the recovery community. I know you can speak to this, perhaps maybe as good as any other state. And we're thankful for what they've done. And here the pandemic hits, that's impacting people. The secondary issues are going to come on based on frankly, just the shelter in place order itself has caused isolation. Then there's all the trauma and anxiety with jobs and family and all this other issues that impact substance use disorder. Yeah. And here, as the leaders meet, now more than ever, isn't it true that this is when we need these peer-led programs to continue?
I absolutely think so. I think one of the things that we want to get out of is this crisis-driven system we have. We have a system that you have to get so sick with an addiction or a mental illness until you get services. Now, it's gotten better over the last couple of years, but we're not there yet. So you shouldn't have to have the equivalent of a diabetic coma before you get services. Mm-hmm. And that's what peer support can do. That's what someone can call us up on the warm line and say, hey, I had a setback in my recovery last night. I don't want to start drinking at the level I was before. And they can have somebody talk to them about some strategies to get back on track with their recovery. That's not necessarily going to be a clinician who can do that. You don't have to go back through the assessment process. It's just a conversation you have with someone like us to get your life back, or to start seeing that there is a way. So, I think that as the budget gets looked at, what I hope people are going to see is the data that we've been able to collect over the last couple of years, and what our recovery community organizations is collecting out there. The number of peer interactions that we have because we do stuff together, we typically hang out together, and peers often want to be together. And that's how you form your social affiliations, especially in early recovery. So we're here. We're always going to be here, but to keep the train on the track, I'm really hoping that our legislature sees the worth that we have as peers, as people in recovery who are grounded in our communities and care about our communities.
And we're going to talk about that actually some tomorrow on the Neil Campbell Report. The topic's going to be COVID-19 Part 2, the coming wave of addiction and mental health issues. And that's a great segue into going into more detail tomorrow on why that's important, not just for individuals, not just for families, but for the state economy. A strong workforce relies on people. We're people. So we'll get into some of that stuff tomorrow on the next edition of the Neil Campbell Report. Neil, you are very busy these days. We're so thankful you made time to help educate the peer community in the state of Georgia on these important issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. And I thank all of our allies and our people in recovery around the state who watch, and stay strong, y'all. And I hope everybody stays safe and well.
So the Neil Campbell Report back on tomorrow at 3 o'clock on Facebook Live. And as we always say, recovery is real. Thanks.
Yeah.